Well, welcome sales professionals and budding sales professionals and maybe wannabe real estate rock stars to Sales Trainer Online, the List and Sell Tour Online, where we talk about everything that has a direct correlation to traction. This program assumes that you've made a break, you've got a start, you've broken into the market, you have been able to secure a couple of listings, and you might be floundering. You might be trying to look about how you leverage from that listing into a couple more and then those two into four and build your market share successfully. Today's subject matter, which we're now up to in this series, on to, goodness me, session 5, and this is about planning. Planning is something that, for one reason or another, seems to elude a lot of salespeople, and they kind of leave it almost to chance and see what happens, and end up being in a position where they're largely reactive. So if I draw a correlation to the situation we have right now in and around COVID, so there's many states that are, or cities at least, metropolitan cities, that are in the midst of lockdown. And if you actually have a look at how people are behaving about it, I say that they're running one of two ways. They're either running from it. What do I mean by running from it? Well, running from it means that they're doing not much at all. They're just waiting to see where the dust settles, and then they're going to be largely reactive within the confines of what the situation deals them. Now, a reminder when I think about something like this of a saying that I heard years ago, pretty sure it was by Emerson, and he said, a reasonable man accepts the world the way that it is, whereas an unreasonable man changes the world to suit himself. Therefore, all progress must be made through unreasonable men. What am I saying? Well, I'm saying that you ought to actually look for the opportunity and be a little irrational around the situation and look for how you can turn it to your advantage and make the whole situation work your way. You see, this is the prevalent, I imagine, characteristic of any great planner. They just don't accept the status quo. They look for the opportunity, and they don't say why or try to understand the situation as it is, and they're not accepting of it. They just say, why not? Why can't I turn this around to my advantage? You know, I look at what's happened almost immediately with property inspections and things like that in and around COVID. And I say to myself, this is a remarkable opportunity to move away from the open for inspections, better qualify the buyers and move those qualified buyers into properties. And if you actually get those buyers on file and you know how you're handling them, well, you've got a great story to tell to any prospective seller about how you can actually still manage to make the connection with a prospective buyer in their property and then get that property across the line and probably do it economically. You know, it's not the subject matter of today, but, you know, so often I've said that, you know, marketing is not advertising, yet we seem to be so very much bogged down on the idea of securing that horrible acronym, which I'll talk about in a later edition, vendor paid advertising. It's not advertising we need. We do need them to invest in marketing. You want the overall perception to be such that there is a greater leveraging of value, or at least the protection of value. But it doesn't necessarily have to be the case. Anyway, back to the subject matter of planning. You know, what you've got to do in this situation is not so much accept it for what it is and then be like the majority of people and sit back and wait for the cards to be dealt to you. You need to prioritize what is actually important right now and engage, as I am often encouraging leaders of real estate businesses to do, engage in a little bit of patience, but predominantly foresight, to be looking ahead and understanding where the situation's going to go, and then setting up your plans so that you can take advantage of this situation. And there's one thing that just doesn't change. You know, one of the messages I have most often for those that are running sales teams, and indeed those salespeople that are maybe working with directly with a sales associate, you know, working as a mini team, if you like. But even as a salesperson, you know, you've got to remember, and I say this with the utmost respect. They say that the only person that you cannot lie to is yourself. Yet I find it is typically the person we lie to most often. So rather than bullshitting yourself, take stock, take control of the situation, understand yourself more readily, which is again the subject matter that we talk about at Real Estate Rockstar, understanding your strengths and playing to those strengths, and just refusing to get involved in things where you're sort of wasting time. And really plan out the priority of what you need to be doing so that you're just chalking up the results and you're on top of it. I ask most of you, how would your mood be if you were sat on about 10 listings right now? So what are we? We're the 13th of the month, Friday the 13th. And if you were sat on 10 listings right now, how would you feel about the opportunities that exist? Now, my guess is that you would be upbeat, you would be energized, despite all the issues that were going on around COVID. You'd be thinking, how do I get buyers into these properties, get these properties sold, leverage off that to create even more listings? So you wouldn't be looking at it feeling deflated, and you might be looking at it saying, I've got this new problem. Well, I say this over and over again. Life is a series of problems. The moment you overcome the current issues you have in front of you, there'll be a fresh set of problems awaiting. So it's not, there's never a state of where it's problem free. It's just the relativity of those problems. And what we crave is that each week, each day, or if you want to expand it, each year, we want to make sure that we don't keep arriving back at having the same problems we had the previous year, the previous month, the previous week, or yesterday. So you want to move on to the next set of problems. So here's what I want to explain about planning. Recognize that if you've struggled with this, it just means that your skill level isn't where it needs to be. And it's like any other skill. You start out and you're a complete doofus. And pardon me being brutal about this. And then what you do is you develop these skills through trial and error, but you have to make a start. And the start I'd like to give you today is just to understand the characteristics as they relate to the current situation that we've got on a mass scale, the problems, the challenges that perhaps COVID is presenting, where it has completely disrupted the way that you go at it. But if you're to be honest, if you looked at your situation pre-COVID, without all the challenges that exist right now, were you truly happy with your productivity and the way it is? And I can tell you, those that were happy with their productivity, those that were happy with the situation pre-COVID, have adapted quite readily to the current challenges, and the beat just goes on for them. Why? Because they have the skills that sit around planning. They may not be conscious of these skills, they may not be evident to you, but they don't sit back and wait for the problem to pass. They take it on head on. Now, the beauty of any great plan, if we're to become good planners, is simplicity, is the ability to reduce what is seemingly complex all the way down to a simple understanding of what needs to be done. Clear and concise directives that may appear tough on the surface, but ultimately, if they follow, they attain the desired objective. I say, or has been said, it's more difficult to design a good plan than it is to actually follow that plan. Now, this may not always be true. I reckon there is a bit of a grind, especially when you start out in putting a plan together, but it is a definitive skill of a truly professional salesperson. You can't spend most of your professional life looking to your leader to actually put all the plans in place for you. Sure, they can support you around those plans. Sure, they can support you around achieving the objectives that sit in there. But at the end of the day, you have to be the architect of what is best for you, and you just have to work it backwards. Now, I've used this analogy before. I've talked about this in previous explanations of planning. The analogy I've used is that, we think that we're not good planners, but you get up every day at a preordained time. You do that because you know that you want to arrive somewhere within a certain period of time. You get up and you head out. You get into the car, you put the key in the ignition, your eyes are open, you turn the ignition on, and you navigate that car in the shortest and most direct route to your destination. This is efficiency if you actually have a look at it. So I'll show you as we run that parallel to the things or the characteristics of a great planner in how it is that you do this almost naturally right now. But all you have to do is start to become more conscious of how you pan this out and how you make this work. So first and foremost, the characteristics of great planners, I urge you, if you're taking notes here right now, is to make the time. Seriously, a day in reconnaissance is a week saved in battle. So the first thing you need to do is just stop whatever it is you're doing. If things aren't going, pardon the pun, according to plan, I would imagine that plan is loosely sat in your head. Things aren't seeming to go right, and the plan itself is flawed. So you need the time to contemplate, think on, and determine the actions necessary that will formulate that great plan. This, of course, is working in the black. When those of you that know that we use the color coding system, red, blue, black, and now green. Red, of course, is necessary but not income producing activity. Blue is direct sales and marketing, where you should be spending the majority of your time. But black is about future objectives, planning, future sales, and all the things that have a correlation, even training, even what you're doing right now is working in the black. You have to take the time to extract yourself from what you're doing, sit on the outside and look at what you're doing rather than looking from the inside, because when you're in it, it is very difficult to see it. In the same way when you watch a sporting team, and we sit there as in the armchair critics, we can see all the mistakes quite freely because we're looking at the thing contextually from the outside of the game. It's easy to see fault, but when you're in there trying to do your best and trying to do your little part, especially when it's a team sport, it's difficult to see where the issues are. So you have to make the time to sit back from it and look at it from the outside. So you must make the time to work on your career before you allocate the time to be working in it, so that you know that when you are working in it, you're spending that time wisely. Efficiency. Now, I just gave you that example of, you navigate the car in the shortest and most direct route. So I say the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. You have to look for the efficiencies consistently and constantly. A simple rule of economics is to achieve more with less. I always say less is more. The more you can achieve with less, the better. A classic example of this is, rather than looking at the prospecting game with dialing people one at a time and doing arm-to-arm combat, we utilize the power of marketing, where you can speak to volumes of people through perceptions at almost the same time. There's no greater example of this than just utilizing presence marketing in terms of prospecting. Everything from for sale cards going out all the way through to direct contacts, like, if you're doing the PMBX, Your competitor puts a sign up. We know that within a definitive radius, there's going to be other active property sellers watching the competitor sign. We take advantage of it by intervening, making it clear that we have buyers on file. Now we're getting the inquiry off the competitor's sign. This is efficient because you are creating that connection where you are identifying an active property seller without the need to go through the hard run slog of putting the other things in place. So whenever you're looking, this is what great planners do. Whenever they're looking at any task that befalls them, they say, is there a more effective and efficient way to do this? I found it fascinating many years ago when we used to do group inspection, and we were doing large volumes of properties coming on the market. And I said, well, why can't we just do it this way? Rather than all of the team going out, which is inefficient, why don't we all commit to taking a buyer to that property? We get to see it, a buyer gets to see it at the same time, and maybe a sale gets to occur. To me, that made far more sense. I don't want to start a riot with other companies and other agents when they hear this, but can you see that that's just a simple way of looking at things more effectively? There's got to be a quicker way. There's got to be a better way. So when I look at technology, I find it fascinating that all the advancements we've made in technology, in the mobile phone, for example, actually ended up complicating things. You see, you think about when you go to meet a friend or otherwise, the number of times, if you say, look, I'll see you next Thursday at a pub, how many times do you guys call on that mobile phone associated with that meeting? You might ring the day before, we're still on for tomorrow. Then you ring on the morning, we're still on for this afternoon. Then you ring about an hour out, I'm on the way, I'm in the car. Then we ring when we've arrived, blah, blah, blah. Now, you might think that's efficient. I don't see that it is, because years and years ago, we used to call, we'd make a time on a landline, I'd see you next Friday. If something unforeseen occurred, we'd try to get in contact with them as quickly as we could. Other than that, we'd just turn up, and typically turn up on time. So in some ways, that phone, it's not the technology's fault, it's the way it's been utilized that it's made it more complex rather than more simplistic. So it is that I say that's another thing that you need to do around not just being efficient, but keeping it simple. And I'll get onto that in just a second. Realism, the plan must be workable. So you must set plans that are workable by the person it's designed for. Putting a plan in place that requires a skill level that's beyond your scope at present is just not practical. So you need to look at it and say, what do I need to achieve? I find it fascinating that somebody sets for themselves a goal of 4 listings for the month, or let's call it 5 or 6. And they've never done that before. And they're going week in, week out. By the end of week 2, they still haven't even had 1 listing presentation. Now, I don't know about you, unless your name's JC and you're able to turn 5 loaves of bread, 2 fishes to feed multitudes of people, you're in a bit of strife here. You can't make that many listings out of 2 fewer presentations. So it just comes down to being realistic. What are the practical steps I have to take to actually have the presentations that I need to have? What is my conversion ratio on those presentations? So realistically speaking, what is a goal that's readily attainable that I can reach? And it's just that one as a goal that you set this month before you set the same one next month. Having said all that, we also know that there's a lot of things that are associated with it. In fact, I was speaking to one of our sales trainer mentor students that I'm working with just yesterday. And we were talking about, the day before, we were talking about, how his progress has advanced so very quickly. And we were talking about, in particular, because we've trained very heavily around the listing presentation. In fact, he's on here right now. You know who you are. I'm not going to reveal your name until you're comfortable with me doing that. But we were talking about how he's achieved those results, and he was putting it down to the training that we did. And I must say, he's come a long, long way on the listing presentation, in particular, the preamble that leads in. His engagement is just very sound now. But the real standouts, believe it or not, are fundamentally his confidence. And because he's now achieving great results, his enthusiasm is just undoubted. Now, if you recollect, I've always said to most people that I work with on a coaching level that enthusiasm and confidence will compensate for any degree of a lack of knowledge or a lack of presentation or anything else that might be around. And what I was saying to him was, when you get into another situation where the results start to slow again, I want you to remind yourself of the level of enthusiasm and confidence you had that was actually bringing the results forward. So this is where the realism comes into play. This is where you feed it. This is where you forward project in planning. Just keep it real. Small steps where you gradually improve. So each month you are gradually lifting your performance until it gets to a level that absolutely blows you from here to tomorrow. So again, I say, keep it, when structuring the actions of a plan, overestimate the effort required and underestimate the skill. Don't make it difficult for yourself. Make it real, make it practical, make it easy. So I overestimate the effort that is required, but I underestimate the degree of skill that I'm going to have to use. Again, keeping it simple, I put all of the actions that I have to take very simplistic in an order that's easy to follow. For me, the one thing that I'd be looking to control right now is listings. I would be building myself an exhaustive list of active property sellers, because I'm very clear on that's the thing that I can control and can control fairly readily. And I would prioritize all of those listings into order. I would be examining each of them, and I would be thinking very, very seriously about the actions that I could take that would elevate me or assure me to be the premium, the number one choice with each and every one of those listings that I wanted to secure. And I would have that reduced to a number, because I know that everything that I've got, just getting back to my enthusiasm and my level of confidence, is going to be fed by those results. So if I went out and I got a quick 10 listings, I know that my enthusiasm and confidence would be taken care of. This would then cause me to basically perpetually be an agent that's just rolling through results, irrespective of the condition, irrespective of the climate that besets me. I then have loads of checklists. Great planners know to actually have simple to-do lists. Just write it down. I cannot begin to tell you how bloody important it is to stop, think about it, write those checklists down of exactly what has to be done. Even if you think it's something that's a little bit superfluous, if you write it down, you can then examine it and go, well, that's not necessary. Just cross it out. But you've actually freed yourself of that action. So I say to-do list. It's easy to forget to do something during a busy day that's often interrupted by incoming telephone calls, colleagues and clients. A written checklist is your absolute protection against this. When planning, you should design lists that will keep you focused on and working toward the goal. If you understand that if the listing goal is achieved, everything else falls into place almost readily. Preparation, over prepare and you'll over deliver. It's that simple. So often when I see listings that are lost, I can nearly always identify some part of the process that was overlooked or forgotten. So often, even now, I talk to a lot of agents about that I work with that are privy. They actually have the property seller's research guide on hand. And I'll ask, was this sent out before you got to the listing presentation? Oh, no, I forgot. Oh, no, I didn't have time. Oh, no, I spoke to them on the afternoon and made the time, and I was just headed down there anyway. Simplistic things that add up if you put them all in place to be creating a foolproof situation where you're giving, where the odds are seriously weighted in your favor with thorough preparation. So I always say over prepare and you over deliver, whether it's daily, weekly, or monthly. Don't wait to see what may or may not be given in any situation. I should have or I could have are not excuses you hear great planners use. Simple checkpoints. Great planners know this. Now, I've said this over and over again. Good reminder. On the 10th of the month, which we've just passed this month, you should have achieved half the goal. Why? Because you are most productive when you're most energetic, when you're at the start. Don't wait to the point where you get behind, where you'll either give up or then start looking to next month. This is not an option. It's never too late to resuscitate it, but you still need to make the moves. So if the plan isn't working, I don't stick to the plan. I stop, recalibrate, rethink, redesign the plan and move forward. I never compromise the goal to suit the plan. I change the plan to suit the goal. Then last, but also not last, downtime. You need to make sure that your plan has that downtime. You need to make sure that it has time so that you can do this practically. Nothing drives me nuts more than when someone starts to, when things are going down, they start to say, I'm going to work around the clock. I'm not going to sleep. I'm not going to take time off. This is just nuts. It's not the time you're putting in. If you keep spending more time at something, you're simply going to run out. Time is a finite resource. It's not infinite. You can only give it so much time, and you will reach a point where you're giving it too much time and becoming less effective because you're bloody tired. So you must have a good plan that balances, that puts the downtime in there for you to recharge, revitalize, and feel relaxed so that you go at it the right way. Remember that you're in control of your time. You've got to be proactive, not reactive. This is one of the great things I spend and talk to with leaders about, that you need to work. If you're in a reactive disposition, you need to create a plan that gets you ahead of the game so you start to become proactive. What do I mean by that? Have you got a few listings right now and all of your energy's into selling them? Have you forgotten about how you got to those listings in the first place? And have you let go of the prospecting ball, which is going to come to bite you on the backside shortly? So you need to be proactive. You need to understand that everything starts with prospect flow. Everything then starts with making sure that you have a listing presentation set as a rule of thumb each day the day before. That's proactive. You're making sure that you never finish a day without knowing that the next working day that you come in, you have a listing presentation set. And then you just need to have a balance in those results. So, you know, I'm not talking about balanced lifestyle, that sort of stuff. I'm talking about understanding that a job description for a professional real estate salesperson is prospect, list, reduce, sell. Prospect, list, reduce, sell. So you have to be attacking each four of those functions on an almost daily basis. Now, I'm not saying that you have to focus about reductions in just price. The R2S function, the prospect, of course, is making sure that you actually have opportunities with active property sellers. The list part is making sure that you're in a listing presentation on a daily basis. Look, that might feel like it's a bit of a pipe dream at the moment, but it needs to be your major objective at some stage. The R2S, you know, when I say reduce to sell, this is also just a control of expectation. It doesn't necessarily or practically mean that you have to control price. You know, again, I'm reminded of a situation I had with a salesperson the other day who had a property coming up to auction. And they were meeting with that person that afternoon and we were having discussions, and the seller's mind was already about 50 grand away from where it needed to be. And he said, well, I'm going to talk to them this afternoon. I said, no, tell them now. The sooner you tell them, the sooner they're dealing with that, the sooner they have time to consider the contingencies and prepare for the inevitable going forward. So these are the things that characteristics that great planners have. They focus on activity. If you are doing the necessary actions and you know the outcomes of those, the results must simply flow. And you've got to keep your spirits and rely on the numbers. The numbers never lie. if you forget to make the follow-up calls on open for inspections using the right dialogue, you're not going to get the yield, which is 1 in 7. Do not blame the people that you're dealing with. Don't sit there and say, oh, there never didn't seem to be that many, in this case, sellers in there because it's a first home buyer property. That's just a load of rubbish. 1 in 7 people that visit and open for inspection in the first month are actually sellers. If you're not getting those numbers, it's not that they're not there, it's that you've failed to utilize the dialogue questioning and they don't have the confidence to reveal that to you. So it's super important. Okay, last but not least, just build in some simple success habits. These are what planners do. They set and confirm each day's appointments the day before. So before they have the appointments set for the next day, they confirm them on the evening that they're finishing before, and then they know that when they wake up, they're going into a full day, fully confirmed, and then an appointment basically is an opportunity to produce. In the morning, they write up today's results that they're going to achieve before they've even got them. I don't know, it's just this amazing thing. This mind can't tell, this brain that we have can't tell the difference between fact and fiction. So if you tell it it's achieved the result before it will, it just kind of automatically drives all your energy and time toward that. Write positive daily affirmations. This is another thing that we do. You become what you think about all day long. So make sure when you're having conversations with yourself that these are positive and they are spelled out to your mind, yeah, in the past tense before you even embrace the concept. Learn and implement some new strategy, dialogue, or system almost daily. I'm still doing this 30 years down the track. Just in leadership the other day, I learned a new technique that I've been using with the leaders that I work with. And I just do this on an almost daily basis. Something new, something to share with them. Read a good business book or biography at lunchtime, please. Just because you can read, you have no advantage over someone who can't if you don't read. For goodness, and just start a day. You don't have to read a whole book. You don't have to read it from end to end. Business books, good biographies, just find out where the juice is and just read sort of 10 pages or something. Even if you're only doing that a month, it's going to change the way you see things. You're educating yourself, you're improving. Call each owner and ask for a letter of recommendation. Are you following up on those accolades? Are you spending those? Because even those accolades, they'll just make you feel good. There's lots of other habits that you can enjoy. Start with planning. Start with premeditating your results before you move forward. And importantly, right now, start with controlling your incoming listings. Get control of it. And believe you me, with what I believe is set to come in the next couple of months, you'll be ahead of the game while the others were languishing. You'll start out and you will prosper from day one. Those agents that are controlling the lion's share of the stock moving forward will be the players in their respective marketplaces moving forward. My name's Mark Dwyer. You can catch me at Mark with a K at salestrainer.com.au, or you can telephone me on +61 410 592 165. Love to talk to you if you're interested in getting on board with Sales Trainer Mentor, where we meet with you every week and do this stuff, which is actually setting up your plans and moving you forward. Fantastic company. Hope to see you next week or the next installment of List and Sell Online.